but I'm the one sculpting and shaping that while they're, providing me with the clay, right? So, oh, that's a bar. That's a word.
Not
But
you
I
impressing
say all that to
yourself.
say, um, yeah, I never used that one
Ooh, I
before, and
ate with that.
it's
Ooh.
on recording. That is a yeah, I ate with that one. For all the liberated souls and the ones in the back, welcome to another class. Another, I guess these are sections because this is a section. This is what we're releasing this in the spring. So the spring section of Off the Syllabus. I am Dev.
Hey y'all, hey, it's Cam. Nice to see y'all see or hear y'all with us. I don't know. I feel like I just messed up what I was trying to say, but thanks for returning back to the pod.
See, hear,
That's
engage.
what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah. Cam, you had a good week?
I had an amazing week. Yes, it's been very positive and productive. I'm very, very appreciative of that.
I had a good week too. It was a really good week. I mean, every week is a good week. Let's put that
Hmm.
out there. Every week is a good week. Some are gooder than other weeks.
True, true, true.
Some are greater than the gooder of the gooder weeks, right? You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So every week is a good week. This week was a good week, a great week, primarily because we only really worked 2 days out of the 5 because of the holiday. So, the holiday to which we are recording this episode, this lesson. So happy Turkey Day to those out there who eat the turkey, worship the turkey, or put that roast in and then roast beef. You know what I'm saying? So obviously you're not listening to this during anywhere near a holiday. Uh Actually, this is what, episode 4? So we would have, when you're listening to this, comment if comment whatever holiday we're around, because it's either we're in the month of blackety blackness, right, where we amplify our blackness, or we're just going into March, no matter like when this release. But regardless, this week was a really good week. We got some good dialogue for you all as we are continuing to chart paths um chart paths to the unknown, the known unknown. And as we move forward, uh this episode is going to be more about parents and how we broker power in our parents, right,
Yeah, it
Cam?
was the fist clenching for me. You felt that in your shundo. Yes. Yeah, you
Power.
went straight to the
Yes.
fist, and I love that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the work that we do, it's very youth focused, obviously, but we also have the blessing of engaging with families because that's how the student is going to have the most successful outcomes. And so I'm very excited to get into like some of these topics that we've established because I think that it's going to help broaden youth development professionals just approach in their mindsets when it comes to how we engage the families and the parents, particularly and guardians, in what we do.
Listen, let's get into it.
Let's go.
I guess we'll the reflection prompt that I see on our lesson plan. Sometimes without saying a word, who was that parent, guardian, or community elder that moved mountains for your dreams? Sometimes without saying a word. Think about it. Drop it in the comments. Drop it in the chat. Well, technically we're not live, so you can't drop it in the chat. But drop it in the comments. Share and tell the story. Tag us so we can know who that elder, community member, parent, or guardian who really expressed that they seen greatness in you.
I can go if you have to.
Move
If you
mountains
have to
for
think
your
about your
dreams. Yeah, go.
person.
Yeah. I gotta think. I
Okay.
gotta think. I gotta
No
ponder.
worries.
I gotta start using bigger words. I gotta ponder.
No worries. Well,
Huh.
while
Well,
you're
who you got, Cam?
pontificating, I'll go ahead and I'll interject. So
Okay.
for
Challenge accepted.
me, I have two people. I can't never just. I guess maybe that's just the Gemini in me. I can't never just take one approach. I always be looking at multiples, or I always have multiple
Mm-hmm.
answers. And so for me, my mother popped up in my head immediately, but also my high school mentor, Adam Smith, that oversaw the Upward Bound program when I was a participant, also fits into this category. So my mom definitely showed up for me tremendously because from my earliest memory in my education journey, and I'm talking about going all the way back to kindergarten, it was met with adversity. And what I mean by that is because I was in private school, it was not very diverse. So for years of the beginning of my education, I was that only black girl that was in a class. And so unfortunately, my environment was not very culturally responsive. And my mom was just constantly having to come to the school to let them know what this was and what it was not. And I would just come home on a lot of instances confused or angry from like different um, just situations that I experienced with my white peers and educators. So I would just tell her, just trying to unpack, and she would instantly attendance would go up and be like, "Oh no, 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 we ain't doing that." And so she was my advocate from day one, my number one advocate, and that continued all the way up until high school, like literally. So, she was very supportive naturally, but then Adam, by the time I came to high school, gave me just that level of support on a different level from someone that was not related to me by blood, but he was also a black man. So I had never experienced that type of mentorship or seen like that type of positive like reinforcement that comes from, just someone of his stature and just with his type of experience. And he wasn't really an elder though, which was crazy because we were just connecting just recently. He was like 27, 28 years old, like at the time, like overseeing our program and working with all these high schoolers. So he was really like young in a sense. He was an adult, but y'all know, like at that stage of your life, you think you know
Mm-hmm.
everything, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
No
you don't
concept of
know
age.
nothing in your late 20s. You still trying to figure it out. But despite that, he was still able to show up for us beautifully, but especially me. He was the first person outside of my family, first black man mentor that actually like saw me, heard me, accepted my pro blackness, encouraged me to always like display that, and just where I wanted to go to school, like all of that, like he was like my biggest cheerleader. So those are my peoples.
That's good. And as you were talking, I was like trying one, you threw me off with the elders because elders are a specific age. And everybody that I would say is not within that elder range. Um, but like I just felt like all of the adults that was around me extended time, meaning not during school, were those adults, because they allowed for me to explore without compromise or without barriers. Um, so I had hoop streams. I had hoop dreams. I was gonna be the next Dwayne Wade, even though I'm nowhere near 6'3". You know what I'm saying? I was my dreams was crushed as soon as they told me I wasn't getting past 5'10". You know what I'm saying? When I got certain shoes on, I might can stand with the 6 footers, but you know what I'm saying? It just didn't happen for
Understood.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but nobody, Maurice Haskins, Isaac Bliss, Marcus Bliss, Leonard Brock, um, Khadijah Yawn, a whole bunch of different people that I can think. Those are all the leaders. One of which I found out was my cousin, but um, those are all the leaders I was in the youth programming that developed me into who I am today. None of them was like, yeah, nah, you not gonna do that. So just come to program because so we can get you to college or we can get you to graduate high school. They actually pushed me towards those things and supported me through that while also providing me with space when sports wasn't around. So obviously my parents, but
It's not always
that's my
obvious
parents. They don't get to
though.
be on
It's
this
not
list
always.
because
Everybody don't always.
I know, but for me, I'm not putting my parents on this list because they provided me with a stable enough upbringing to where they lacked because they were 20 something or 30 something trying to make a life for their kids. um when I wasn't, they put me in place um particularly my mom, because my dad moved to Atlanta and I didn't live in Atlanta, put me in the position to then be around those youth development professionals, individuals that then help sculpt and shape the direction or the path forward. But I'm the one sculpting and shaping that while they're providing me with the clay, right? So, oh, that's a bar, that's a word.
Not
But
you
I
impressing
say all that to
yourself.
say, um, yeah, I never used
Ooh,
that one
ooh, I
before, and
ate with that.
it's
Ooh,
on recording. That is a yeah, I ate with that one. But I would say, it was truly a village that allowed for me to be where I am today, and that village continues to grow and is still like super super strong. And if you noticed, all of the names that I mentioned were all men with one woman. um and that also plays a role in how I became to become this. So yeah, I can name a ton of names. Miss Million, my third grade teacher, who is like a legend. A lot of my youth development, um you know psyche came from her, and how she kind of developed us. When I was in the school building, I did a lot of what she did for me, in that space with the elementary level kids. So it's a lot of people who who I've taken from, who I've learned from, who's pushed me into the greatness that they seen, without also telling me that I can't do something because I'm from the hood, or from areas of the hood, and all I'm gonna be is, a, I don't know, garbage worker or something like that. But they also didn't tell me that I had to be like a medical doctor or something. They allowed for me to really define what that was, and then challenge me to get to that point.
I love that.
So
Come on,
yeah,
village. Come
it's really
on,
hard to come up with just
village.
names.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really, yo, Rochester. I would say Rochester is one of those. I was just talking about this yesterday, but Rochester is a unique place that we don't understand how unique it is until we leave. Because a lot of this that we talk about, and a lot of the things that we talk about on a national level, it happens in Rochester already. Um, and people think Rochester is like the country, and it's like, nah, it's really a city.
Country. Why? Where
Like,
is that? Where
it's
did
really
that
a
come
city. It's
from?
not, because it's upstate. Because it's upstate and everything, and people, when they think about New York, they only think
Yeah.
about the city. People know about Buffalo because of Buffalo Bills, but like, even Buffalo as a city doesn't have a lot of high rise. It's just a big, like, urban space. But Rochester, the third largest city in the state, um, we are awarded a lot of flexibility in this youth development, community engagement space. Um, and a lot of people have, or come to Rochester because of its progressive nature, in these community engagement spaces. So I was just lucky enough to engage with the people who's leading that work now, in my youth, and then those same people are now being able to pave the way for me to continue to lead this work as I kind of go into the second phase of, my career and all that stuff. So yeah, not one person, not a few people. I think it's a community of um individuals who collectively built the youth development space in Rochester, and I was just fortunate enough to be on that side of town to receive care from those specific people.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, yeah. So for everybody listening, if you have, drop it in the comments. Share. You can speak it, you can type it, you can share it, you can article it, you can thought piece it. It don't matter how you do it, but share with us, tag us, and let us know who was that parent, guardian, or community elder that moved mountains for your dreams, sometimes without saying a word.
Another thing I want to add on to
Um,
extend that challenge is for the folks that
mhm.
facilitate, if you do like any type of teen groups, things of that nature, have this conversation with your teens as well. This could be a great icebreaker. And just open up like a great conversation for them to identify who they currently have in their network, in their sphere of influence, who's pouring into them. But this also could be a transparent moment where you can share with them of how you have made it to the point to where you're at and who poured into you.
It's a really good bonding point to know who your kids hold near and dear to them and why they hold them near and dear. And there's a video circulating around. I sent it to Cam this week. Was it this week? Yeah, it was this week. And yeah, because it's Turkey Day week. This church clip. I'm not gonna get too much into it because we got to move forward. But it's a church clip, and when you don't have meaningful meaningful engagements with your kids, and you're always scolding them, that can show up in so many different ways. So you want to make sure that you're engaging your kids in a meaningful light while also empowering who they feel is in their circle, even if it's not you, because that's not forever. Not now doesn't mean not ever, as the great Dr. Tasha would say. So with that, we're gonna move into segment 1. Drum roll, please. And it's all about dropping gems or the life learner. And again, I've been engaging. Matter of fact, I've been intentionally, with a lot of intentionality, engaging in this parent space, this parent power broker space, parent leadership space. One of my contracts that I currently have right now is all about parent engagement, to which I am actually building a parent liberator model. I've been building a parent liberator model. I've been leading parent cafes in Rochester alongside parents who are looking to build capacity in the city or in the county of Monroe County, which is where Rochester is located. So one of the things that the Parent Cafe teaches or says is that parenting is a learned skill. It is not inherent. It is not natural to everybody, but you have to learn how to be a parent. So with that, I want to say that parenting is an art shaped through positive youth development, and every parent must overstand. I'm going to say that again. Every parent must overstand their role in their child's growth, or nephews or niece, just a kid in general. But we're talking about parents here. It is not solely on parents, mentors, aunties, uncles, and all of the village in between to care for the child, for the whole child. Yes, it takes a village, but it must be led unapologetically by the parents or parent, right? The reality is both parents aren't always in the household. So one of my I don't like to say rule of thumb because my mom told me that look at there, mom. My mom told me that rule of thumb actually comes from like it has a dark meaning to it. So I try not to use it. So I try to heed to
listen to your
the
mama.
elders.
Yes.
My mom's not an elder. She don't get there.
Nothing
But I gotta listen to my mama, right? So what I always like to say is co-parenting, or the conversation of co-parenting, should always be at the forefront, even if you feel like you won't be a co-parent, because even when you live in the same household, you still have to co-parent. If I said no, 9 times out of 10, I need the other parent to say no too. And then we talk behind the scenes in order to make sure that the no sits, it stands. But if I say no and you say yes, guess who's gonna be reached out to in the moments where the kid feels like I'm gonna say no.
Who's gonna be the good cop versus the bad cop?
Good cop, bad cop. Good cop, bad cop, all of that stuff, right? So you want to make sure that co-parenting is always at the forefront, because in the event of having a kid, you are one person, the other person is another person. We have our own minds, we have our own ways to which we were raised, which informs how we parent, which means that sweets after 10 o'clock might be a no for me, it might be a yes for you. Drinks after 7 p.m. might be a no for me, and it might be a yes for you. Getting up in the middle of the night because you peed the bed might be a yes for you, but it's definitely a no for me. That's all co-parenting, right? So you want to dive into that art. Art is all about practice. You practice to perfect that art. Parenting is all about practicing. And understanding that you need to learn what builds the whole child and what breaks them down. Study the realities of adolescence and the complex layers that shape young people. The most critical piece of the puzzle is you, trusting that you are consistently doing what works to ensure that your child receives everything they need to strive in this life, in this world, and beyond your lifetime. After all, a child born with no state of mind is blind to the ways of mankind. Cam, what you got?
Well, kudos first of all for that soliloquy. That was very well said. I agree with you wholeheartedly. As an actual parent, I've been able to. I'm no shade. No, I just said I agree with you.
You had a little. You had. Hold on. Whoa, 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 whoa. Class. Did you hear like an accent on
I
the
was just
A?
emphasizing.
So like
So
me as the actual parent, and for y'all listening, didn't you see some head movement in there? All right, I'm sorry.
as I
Go
was
ahead.
saying, I was
Go ahead.
emphasizing that I have experience firsthand of what you were saying and was going to elaborate on why I agree with you because like you said, it's a learned behavior and even me now being in this game of parenting for 20 years, I'm still learning. And there's like, different stages obviously we all know that the child goes through, but the same is can be said for the parent or the guardian. Like you're constantly evolving, um, and there's beauty in that evolution if you're able to have open dialogue about that. But then also just give yourself grace and just know that you're going to mess up sometimes. Like you're not always going to get it right, but that doesn't mean that you can't still grow from that moment and just be able to, just help with further cultivating like your child. So that's all I was gonna say,
Yeah,
Devin.
yeah. Hey, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I heard an accent on the A.
I just wanted
That's
our
all.
audience
And
to
I think that
know
the
that I relate to the ones that are listening who are parents and again affirming you and what you said because your expertise has allowed you to be able to
say
speak
it.
in depth about something that you haven't experienced yet. I'm just that's all. That's it, that's all.
Mm, mm,
You ready though?
mm,
You ready for whenever
mm.
that time do come? I'm not trying to rush that for you. I don't rush that on anybody, but clearly you got.
Yeah,
I'm
don't try
definitely,
me. I could really
I'm
take care of
definitely
myself
not.
right
But
now.
I'm just again affirming that you are going a step in the right direction, and you have the tools that will help you once you're ready to transition into that chapter. I didn't have that mindset initially, so if let my son tell it, like we've had quite the ride. You know what I'm saying? But it's been a good ride. It's been a good
Oh
ride.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that'll be a whole
It definitely
monologue.
could be. That could be a whole
Ah
nother
man,
episode in
listen.
itself. Mother and son
Yeah, whole another
relationships.
episode.
Like, yeah, it's a thing.
I feel it. I feel it. Well, topic one, Cam, take us away.
So with that being said, I thought that it would be really dope for us to touch on what some different family engagement strategies could look like and ones that actually work instead of it just being kind of just one and done or it coming off as performative. I think that a lot of school districts, a lot of organizations that work with this population have good intentions for the most part of wanting to bring our families more into the educational experience of the student. But when it's not done with strategy and intentionality, oftentimes it can fall flat, or you don't get the outcomes that you're really looking for because again like you haven't really looked at like all the factors that go into it and you don't really I think a lot of times these orgs don't also like just look at you have to read the room. And what I mean by that is you have to be able to like meet your audience where they're at depending on where what the needs are of that community or the space that you're operating in. So, just going back to the phrase real quick of parents as power brokers or just the title of our episode, a power broker is basically just a parent, a guardian, community elder that's moving behind the scenes, but also they're essentially the policy shapers and they're the protectors of the potential of their child that's in their life. And oftentimes when you're having just one-on-one conversations with parents, at least for me, my sake, they don't really feel empowered a lot when they're trying to be involved with their child's educational experience because of whatever experiences where the school was talking to them crazy or teacher wasn't, like speaking positively on their child. It's just so many different reasons that go into why they don't feel empowered. And so that's something for myself personally with the work that I do, where I've been trying to figure out a way and create a formula for how that way parents can join me and my team in the work, but also just feel like, okay, like you play a bigger part than what you realize, and you can really help steer this ship and be more influential if you take into account like some of these, different strategies, or however you want to refer to it, if you just try some of these different steps that maybe you haven't been accustomed to doing. So I discovered when I went on my search of, parent engagement strategies, Dr. Karen Mapp, who I was not familiar with before, we had identified this as a topic. And so she is actually a professor at Harvard. I believe in the graduate school space. If I'm not mistaken, we can put more information in the caption about her. We're obviously going to share this video, but she was performing a keynote for, it looked like, what was a parent engagement conference that was maybe in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. But like the way that she broke it down, just the years of her research and like her career of things that she saw that worked successfully when it came to this topic really resonated with me, because as she was just touching on like her framework that she's created to provide organizations with guidance on how to make improvements in this area. Like she was just also giving examples, and I'm like, "Oh, I've done this. I've tried this." Okay, like I felt very affirmed, because I think that for the folks that are really in the thick of it, really in the trenches and hands-on with doing this work, you naturally adapt to some of these practices that she mentions, because you really don't have a choice but to, or you just learn from trial and error. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So we obviously have to learn very quickly how to pivot being in the youth development space and notice like, okay, like I thought that this is going to pull more parents or attract them or bring them, to programming, but that didn't work. So obviously, I'm not going to do that again. Let me figure out how to shift and to try like a different approach. So she talked about like how organizations can benefit from truly making it a systemic approach. And what she broke down by that was you have to make sure that everybody that is involved, like in this space, in this work, have to have ongoing learning development when it comes to how to engage your families. So she was very specific on saying that this is not only the educators, this is also administration, this is support staff, this is even the folks that are serving lunch, or who are like hall monitors. Like everybody has to be on the same board of how you're going to like greet your parents when they're in the building or when you're interacting, and then when it goes beyond that, of how to get their buy-in on being more engaged. Everybody has to be continuously
Mm-hmm.
working, not just doing a one and done type of learning and development like a session type thing. It needs to be more coursework that is provided, so that way parents are having ongoing opportunities where they're being literally given the tools of how they can show up stronger. Another example that she brought up was when she was in Boston, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, it was
working with
Boston.
that school district, how she would have like basically folks that would travel from like all over the country, from like the Chicago's, the LA's, who would, engage with her, and they would see the benefit in what she was saying, and they would basically like tell her like, oh, okay, we're gonna take your model then, and we gonna run with it to LA, and we're gonna
We're
execute it.
gonna.
And so she gave
Yep.
the example of like, no, you can't do that because like you have to make sure that it's going to be applicable to the actual community, like where
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be doing engaging. So I think that that's just another key piece that a lot of organizations like miss the mark on because you think you can do this one and done type of approach. And that is not the case. Like we do have a lot of similarities. I feel our different communities, whether it's the Rochesters or the Chicagos or the Rockfords, but we also have things that are very different that makes us very unique. Devin, stop making that face. I'm not about to play with you. I'm not about to play with
Say
you.
nothing.
But anywho, um, yeah, like I just appreciate again, like I said, just her talking about making this interactive as well. So what she meant by that was actually like making these ongoing leadership development or just these engagement attempts as like an opportunity to bring the parents in but allow them to be a part of the conversation, like giving them activities to do, like having them participate in the icebreakers. A lot of times when folks are approaching like the workshops and the sessions, it's literally just PowerPoint and it's just that facilitator just talking from beginning to end. There's not really always a lot of opportunities for the crowd to talk back, for them to question, for them to like really engage. So she talked about like why that was so important too, because the relationship building piece that is important in order for parents to buy in or for them to truly put their trust in these administrations. It's not going to just appear overnight. Like you have to give them the opportunity to feel
Mm-hmm.
like seen, but then you also just need to again be more willing to meet them where they're at, express interest in the things that actually are beneficial for them instead of just approaching them with like, hey, okay, we gonna do a parent session Monday at 5 o'clock p.m. And you ain't even asked the people that you want to show up if that's even a convenient time for them. If you're not even asking, like, what does the timing look like when it's most, been like when you're most available? Like, it's just little things like that that I feel are overlooked a lot. And that's why you don't see more parent engagement because the interest is there. It's just that they don't know how to. Or, for example, like, say if for whatever reasons they came from a family dynamic or a home environment where their parents and guardians were not hands on, what's the likelihood of them being able to, once they then step into that role, that they're going to be able to know how to provide that support if they never receive that? So we have to learn to
Mm-hmm.
not create more barriers, I guess, when we're trying to engage in this particular part of the work of trying to get the parents more on board. So again, like I said, a lot of stuff that Dr. Karen mentioned, I've attempted to do throughout the course of my career in youth development. And one of the most recent attempts was with the Rise Teen Summit that I talked about in our last episode. That is basically like one of the flagship offerings for my organization, By Any Dreams Necessary. We were very intentional, me and my business partner, who runs that event, of wanting to add a component for the parents where they're learning
Mm-hmm.
about what their students' needs are, but then also being given tools, realistic tools, where they can start making baby steps for how they can be more engaged and how they can be more of a power player in their students' organizational journey. So we, through that event, provided resources where we're going to have that on the captions so that way you as listeners can also take a look at it and hopefully use it in your different communities. But we provided a toolkit which is just a very simplified kind of like quick guide that allows the parents to just get in the mindset of like, okay, who is supporting my student, like who is their administrator, who is their counselor, who's their homeroom teacher, who's my school board representative, things like that are important because if god forbid you have an issue or you need assistance with additional where you need additional advocates, these are the folks that you need to be able to build a rapport with that can be working in partnership with you to improve your students' experience if that's needed. The toolkit also has like a template for an email. So that way, parents who are not maybe able to make a parent teacher conference, because these parents be out here, they doing the best they can. And especially if it's a single parent household or if it's like a guardian, like a granny that's taking care of, different
Mm-hmm.
family members' children that she's taking in, she's not able to be in 20 different places at one time. And unfortunately, that's where you miss parent teacher conferences or opportunities to engage with your students' teachers. So we gave email templates so that way you can just start with an introduction of yourself. So that way you can start the conversation through that platform, so you can still be informed if there's any issues or if there's additional things that you could be doing to support your teacher. I mean, not your teacher, your student, working with your teacher to support the students. And then we have the power plan, which was the goal behind that was to help the parents with setting goals alongside of the students, which would support like what the students like dreams are of what they want to achieve like from that school year. Or it can also like go in, it can work in tandem with their post-secondary plan. So that's some of the examples that came to mind for me of how me and my organization have been trying to get more family engagement. And again, I just appreciate how Dr. Karen has been able to simplify it and put it together comprehensively, but also affirm the work that me and Devin and so many other youth development practitioners have been doing for years.
Really good keynote. And what I was telling Cam before we hit record was like, it's super cool to find people who have conceptualized the work that we do naturally into an academic study, into academic research, and then repackage it and push it back out as an academic study that is a proven framework that works. In the dual capacity, the dual capacity building framework is one of those frameworks that has been researched, repackaged, and then pushed out to us to kind of frame how you create capacity not only on the traditional education side with teachers, but also the non-traditional education side with youth development practitioners and then parents. Like how do parents engage with the educators, both traditional and non-traditional, in order to build an ecosystem or a village that supports their child, but not only their child, them as well. And you know, one of the questions that Cam has on the lesson plan is how can educators create genuine two-way communication? And I think part of the two-way communication is understanding that these parents are like young, like these are young people trying to figure this out. And we all know what this economy does to people, but we also know that these kids be coming at the most unopportune time, and nobody ever has a plan for this new little person growing
That
in the
was my
body,
case.
right? And then having to make
Mhm.
decisions based off of this new person. But then I also want to go out and get lit. I also want to go out and get turned. I also want to make sure that I'm doing the things that fills my cup. But then I got this little one running around, or these little people running around. I'm putting the S there because it's plural. Uh, in order to, and then now I like have this unconditional love and protecting energy of these people. So then now I'm doing things to like make sure that they're good, but then I'm also doing things to make sure I'm good. But then there's no balance because I also have to work 40 to 80 hours a week, depending on if I got one job, two jobs, all these different things. So I think part of the communication, that two-way communication, are the resources that By Any Dreams Necessary created. Because it's one of those things that you can communicate in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be a sit down and we talking for 20, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It could be passive communication as well. And then when you do have that downtime, or like in times like this where it's a holiday, and most people are off during the holiday, you can do some guided participation. You can do some guided games and things of that nature to where you're still getting some information, but it doesn't always have to be so formal, and it doesn't have to always feel like school. And I think part of our job as educators is to um, create that path or create potential pathways to that two-way communication. And I actually think it's three-way communication. It's the communication to the parents, but it's also the communication to the kid, and then the vice versa. So like maybe that's like a 3D shape, because I'm thinking like the educator's communication to both entities, but then the two entities communication to the other when the other is not around. So when the parent is talking to the teacher, but the kid is not around, when the kid is talking to the parent, when the teacher is not around, when the teacher is talking to the kid, when the parent is not around. Like all of those garner a different level of communication. And a lot of the times we tend to get locked in this web of lies because one doesn't want to look a certain way to the other. And some parents don't want to acknowledge that they kids are in fact who we say they are. Right? Like, because kids know, right? Kids know. And you were also, parent, that kid who did things. I always like to bring this up. You were that kid that did things when your parent wasn't around. It was just easier for you because social media as we know it didn't exist. So you can go home and catch the report card before mom gets it and then say it never came. You can go home and disconnect the or check the answering machine and delete the message before mom listens to it, or dad, right? So now that everything is like, listen, Dojo sent it. Now it's a instant message, text message, WhatsApp, I don't know, a Google Classroom. There's so many different areas of communication to where I think there has to be a three-way trust between teacher, student, and parent in order for any of what Cam was just talking about to work. And that comes down to that skill building, that art of parenting, to understand how to navigate, your child in times of challenge, not just challenge for the child, but challenge for the teacher and challenge for yourself. So all of that kind of comes together because if you don't handle what you got going on first, then that oozes onto everybody around you, including your kids. And then they get to see you handle things in a certain way, which then causes them to handle things at school in the same way that they see you handle things at home. It is all connected. It is all connected. 2 years old, I'm about to say 2 o'clock. 2 years old is the mimic stage. Kids mimic what they see at home. So if you curse in order to express your feelings and emotions, guess what your kid is doing at school? And if you talk to your kids as adults, guess what they go to school to do? Talk to them kids and those adults with an adult tone, which opens the Pandora's box of potential cause out of being disrespectful. And trust me, I've seen it as young as kindergartner knowing how to speak, articulate, and a boy at this point, speak, articulate, and curse you out as if he was 30 years old.
Yeah, it definitely exists.
So I think that communication piece, that communication piece is huge to this conversation. And I think Karen Mapp did a very, very good job in conceptualizing that and putting it down into the dual capacity building framework for parents and educators alike. And then the RISE toolkit, the RISE parent toolkit, and the parent power plan. I've seen them. I've passed them out. I've looked at them. Really good resources to start those conversations and continue those conversations with your kids as you continue to help and assist them through their primary and secondary and post-secondary education. Not the yes.
Yes. It spoke to me. It meant I felt it.
Word. Yes. What you about to say, Kim?
That threw me off. I
Mm.
just was going to say that yeah, well actually I was gonna ask, like, with the parent cafes that you mentioned that like you participate in, what does that like frequency look like, and what are some of like the, I know you said earlier that like you have like a framework that you're creating through these experiences, but like what have basically been like the positive outcomes that you've been experiencing from the work you've been doing with that?
Parent cafes have been going on in Rochester for some time, maybe a couple years now, led by Rock the Future, which is it's an alliance. It's Rock the Future Alliance is the name of the organization. It's more so like this is a convener of the decision makers and the decision making organizations of the greater Rochester area, to make sure that the state of our kids are understood and is kind of consolidated at one table. So you don't have multiple, entities trying to dictate the state of our kids. So the superintendent of the school, the Rochester City School District,
Oh,
is
that's dope.
there, and like legislators and Rock to Future then has Pecan. Pecan is a parent led entity within Rock the Future that builds capacity within parents. So Rock the Future has always had this focus on parents and parents leading the way, parents engaging with like the teachers association president and things of that nature, just to so parents understand what's going on in these organizations that they don't have, that they should be a part of, but they are not a part of. And obviously, if you're not a teacher, you won't be privy to that information. So Rock the Future is that convener to make sure that parents understand, how to navigate these spaces. So then there was an opportunity as this like progressive way of programming arose to engage with the Be Strong Family Parent Cafe model, which is a model that engages parents in a small cafe with a facilitator and all of that stuff. So Rock the Future has been leading cafes for a while, and then by way of the Greater Rochester Health Foundation and National Parent Leadership Institute, and our Healthy and Equitable Future strategy that we've been leading since 2020, in Rochester. Um, Last year, well, this year actually, we, a group of parents from the partnering orgs in the HEF strategy, got trained to be cafe host, and then we turned the cafe model into like a community engagement tool in order to get closer to our parent liberator model. So with that, we've developed a lot of parent cafes that have spoken to a wide range of topics, and a lot of great conversations have come out of it. It's way too much
Mhm.
data to like think about what's the best
Yeah.
outcomes that comes through, but I think it's a really good way to take regular degler parents who are
Mhm.
surviving
Mhm.
in our communities and to provide them with a space to
Mhm.
be human, and to
Yeah.
just be a parent. Because a lot of the times, let's just take like a police officer. A police officer is
Mhm.
always a police officer, right? But when you put them into that parent cafe space, we tell them to take off their professional hat. So you can only
Yeah.
be a parent here. So we don't need you to be dissecting what's the
Mhm.
legality of this because you are a lawyer, or what is healthy or not healthy about this because you are a doctor, a medical doctor, or a nurse, or whatever the case. It's bring you to the space and only be a parent. All that other stuff can exist in its own spaces, but bring you to the space. And I think that's the biggest outcome of this, is where we're engaging parents from different backgrounds as they show up and as they are, versus um, engaging with a conglomerate of people who are parents, but they're also bringing their like professional identity
Mhm.
into the space. And one of the things that I've always, so the parent cafe model is a model that really wants you to speak deeply on like emotion based things. And when I'm helping to shape the development of our parent cafes, I actually went the opposite way. As I don't want, because part of it is also like in the cafe model, you can't give advice
Mhm.
because it's not the space for you to give
Just
advice. You
listen.
just listen. Cam, Yeah, Cam shows up with
Mhm.
her experience. Dev shows up with his experience. If Dev says something that Cam feels like she can help with, the cafe model doesn't allow for Cam to then give
Mhm.
Dev advice during the cafe. Now, after the cafe, if you want to build a friendship or whatever, and you want to start to, build that village, then sure. But during the cafe model, that doesn't exist.
Which is great
So,
because that's
that's also.
essentially like inspiring them to create more community, like outside of just that experience. So,
Yep. And what I envision like during the training and things of that nature is if we aren't very intentional with the way in which we ask questions, we tend to trigger a lot of trauma, and we don't have the people in the room or the right tools in the room to then like address that
yes.
trauma at some point. So you have a lot of parents who've just been existing and really on autopilot
Mhm.
trying to survive. And then you ask a question similar to like the question the reflection question that we had around who is somebody who has
Mhm.
poured into you in your life. And somebody will take that and it'll break them down to where now you have this person crying because now
Yeah.
they're remembering somebody that's probably
Yeah.
not here anymore, or that's
Or
not,
they
you
may
know what I'm
think
saying?
that, dang,
So
I didn't have nobody to show up for me, and then that could be traumatic too.
yep,
Mhm.
yep, all of those. Yep. So for me, I think one of the other powerful things is us being able to really shift and create our own questions for the cafe model, to really get parents thinking about that capacity building piece. Because I think we have this desire to be emotionally connected to parents, because we understand emotion no matter how emotionless you may come off to be. But in this capacity building work, as cutthroat as it sounds, emotions don't build capacity and don't push systems forward. So part of where I kind of the beauty and the flexibility of the cafe was to honor the reality of being able to express and experience emotion during this time. But how can we ask questions so that people are focused on what do they need in order for capacity to be built versus what don't they have, so now I feel sad and now I'm crying, and then we have a whole table kind of consoling that person, so then we lose sight of the goal of it. So it's both ways, but I think there are more and more parents who are, when they hear about it and when they engage, willing to continue to engage in that type of stuff because they care about the work. And I think part of that is similar to what Karen Mapp talks about and what you were talking about earlier, which is like parents aren't really involved in any of this. Parents aren't really engaged in any of this. Parents are just parents that pick up their child and handle a situation when a situation arises in
Mhm.
terms of behavior. But parents aren't truly asked to engage in a partnership in these schools, in these organizations. So part of this parents as power brokers idea is to lean into parents first, and take the information that they have from their children, because they are the experts of their children, and then shape programs and lesson plans,
Policies.
and hitting state standards
Mhm.
and policies around how parents are informing the best ways to engage
Yeah.
their kids. And then you build from there. So the parent cafes is that, and now we're in the process of really taking this first wave of data, making meaning of it, and then it's going to inform how we engage for our next season, um, and engaging some more parents, and we're going to meet them in the hood,
Yes.
like in
Come
their
on,
hoods. We're
churches.
not
Yes.
asking them to
Yes.
come to us. We trying to go to them. So yeah, it is something that is very, very powerful, and I think the most impactful one that we've had that I've heard is the Dads Cafe, where we had a room full of dads or
I know
male
that
role
was a
models
powerful room.
engaging in this work. Yeah, and the now the challenge though is when you convene men like that, they're looking for the next step. They're not looking to have another conversation. They're looking, okay, we've talked about this. Now, how are
Action
we fixing it?
oriented.
Because we got a lot of powerful people in here. Action oriented. So, and if we don't do that for our men, then our men tend to go the other way. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, good point.
Just throwing that out there.
Good point.
So,
yeah, no, SLA is clearly killing it with the parent cafe. So I appreciate you informing us on how that process has been going, just how y'all broken it down. And if we have any listeners that are decision makers working for orgs or school districts looking for parent engagement, sound like I need to hit up SLA. I'm just saying.
Hey, you did that drop better than I did. All right.
I'm just connecting the dots. I'm a connector, you know.
Hey,
I do what I can.
Listen, I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad at you. So, real quick, before we transition to topic 2, it's time for recess. And I think the analogy of this, just follow me on the analogy, because at first you're going to be like, what's happening? But the analogy,
what are you about to say,
is where I'm at. Because,
you know,
we play with words around here, okay? We play with words around here. Mm-hmm. I'm just waiting for it to... Parental discretion is advised, just so people know. So if you a kid, ask your parent. You can listen to this, okay?
Disclaimer.
Oh shit, this nigga dead, y'all. Oh no, when this happened, niggas dying they ain't never died before. Jesus, why ain't nobody tell his dumb ass to die? The fuck going on? Can't believe this. Did he have insurance?
Did he have insurance? For y'all listening, we just watched a guy. He was trying to decline bench press about, I want to say it was probably heavy. Maybe like 195, somewhere around there. 45 on both sides, 25 on both sides, 10 on both sides, and then 5 on both sides. Whatever that math is, for those who want to do the math, that's how much he was raising. And he did one good. So that is his max. That is his max, 1 rep max, I can tell. But he decided to go in for 2 reps. And he died. Okay, he didn't die for real. The song is just so, I love that song. I don't know who it is. I know it's a black woman because she was singing her. She went to church. Too. Yeah, the rent was due. But what I'll say is so this is ego lifting. And never get lost in your ego when you're dealing with your kids. That is the connection, Cam. See, the problem with ego lifting is who you trying to impress? You're trying to impress people around you. You're trying to be able to go and tell people that you just lifted 225 by yourself on the decline. Never will it be me. I'm never locking out that much weight when I know that I can't lift that at least 10 times by myself fresh in the gym. So when I lock off that weight, I'm locking down in my ego. Don't do that when you with your kids, okay? Don't do that. Because when you get locked down in your ego, your kids run circles around you. They're going to lie to you your whole life. Do not lock off your ego in order to prove anybody right. Just take the L. You do it one time, cool. Don't try to do it again. I promise you. You ain't going to get it. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Or we're going to be playing that song when your kids slap you. I'm just saying. That's what I felt like the recess was today. It don't got nothing to do with the topic. But
yet it was still a word.
It's still a word. Don't lock off your ego. Mm-hmm. Stay within what it is that you do and do that well. Play your role.
Period.
That's all I had to say.
It.
But that is a funny video, and I've seen a few videos of people trying to kill themselves because they trying to lift weight that they shouldn't be lifting for no reason. There's no reason.
I see it in the gym every day. Just blood vessels about to pop out of people's head and their neck, and just stay in your
Just
lane.
stay in your lane. That's it. That's
stay
all.
in your lane. It's that simple. Speaking of our second topic, I think that you were already naturally segueing into it because when you were talking about the parent cafe session and the men that were there, I think that's a perfect way to bring up where we're going with this one. So.
Yeah. We need Black role models, Black fathers to the front. We need them to the front. In the work that I do with parents, I am I'm not a traditional parent. I am a very non-traditional parent. I have kids, but they all adopted me. I didn't adopt them. And one of my kids called me a deadbeat a couple weeks ago. But, it is what it is. He'll be all right.
We talked about that in
episode one. Yeah. So, more power to him. He'll be all right. He got his real dads in his life. You know what I'm saying? So when I am a deadbeat, his dad is not. You know what I'm saying? His dad is never a deadbeat. So I have the flexibility to be a deadbeat dad because I am adopted. Okay. Now, that's
why it's important to have
the village. I pay him for his birthday and for his good grades, and I've been paying him. I done pay him and his brother so much money because we have an agreement. I invested. I'm invested. I'm not paying for his. I'm not. Once he go to college, it's over. But while he in high school, we good. All right.
You think he gonna stop requesting?
At that point, we could fight. We could fight. He gonna have to rob me.
Still be in your pockets. I know. Once they become adults,
I know.
Don't stop.
But he gonna have to rob me. Okay. Yeah, he gonna have to jack me up. I know he bigger than me, but I already told him I still take you down. Anyways. Black dads, Black role models, Black men who care about this work. We need you to the front. There is something. I stood in front of a group of teachers at 34th School, maybe in 2017, 2018. And I told them that I had a power that nobody in that room had. And because I am a Black man who's not in a disciplinary role, in the school, so I have the ability to influence change. I have the ability to influence these kids in a way that nobody in that room has. And I was challenged immediately by one of the white women, and she ended up asking me, what makes you think that's true? And I was like, well, how many other Black men is in this building? It was only one other one. I was like, how many other young Black men is in this building? I was the only one. So I, by way of just mathematics, have a power that none of you have. Because I can engage with my kids from a perspective that none of you have. So by design, me being present as I was 24, 25, maybe during that time. All right now. Okay. All right now.
Wait.
No.
I would just stop trying to affirm you today because clearly I keep stepping on nerves.
I'm just saying. I was saying, class.
Proceed.
I was young, so I had the ability to really connect with those kids. One, because I'm closer to them in age, and that's always a plus. But then the other part is, a lot of these kids, especially when you're in the inner city, a lot of them don't have a active relationship with their dads, not as much as you think. And even those who have dads in their lives don't have a healthy relationship with their dad by way of whatever the relationship that their mom has with their dad, whatever relationship that their family has with the dad, whatever relationship the dad has with his dad. It's a whole bunch of different layers that can go into that, right? I actually found out during one of my kids' 5th grade year that the reason why she was so aggressive is because her dad refused to be in her life. And she has to go home and see that her brother's dad is doing everything to be in his life. So she deals with that internally, and that kind of that resentment and everything, it surfaces as anger, as frustration, as violence, right? So there's always a power for Black men being engaged in these particular education and non-educational spaces. We actually can put a video in the chat around Dads on Duty, which is in Shreveport. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I was about to say something else. Shreveport, Louisiana. Louisiana. I don't know what's going on. Louisiana.
Yeah.
And those dads are actually in the schools, and they're engaging in they're not the security guards, but they're also not the police. They're just dads. And it was super cool because you get to engage in this reality of you can tap into parenthood. And even if those dads aren't parents of any of the kids that are in the schools to which they serve, they still treat them as such. And that is the secret sauce. That is why I said in front of those group of educators that in that portion of the training, the professional development, that I have, and I live in a power that nobody else in this room lives in. And that's because the things that those dads were doing in that, and are doing in that high school, is powerful, because they're showing up for kids at times where they need them the most. And they're not showing up. That doesn't mean that they have to show up in a parental space. All they got to do is show up as a father figure, somebody who's going to guide you, somebody who's going to listen to you, somebody who's going to give you another perspective, another lens to which you are making decisions, or why you shouldn't make the decisions that you're making, and then reaffirm that you have all the tools that you need to be successful. That's what I did during my tenure at 34 school. That's what I continue to do as I work with kids. It's not my job to tell you what you can or cannot do. It's my job to lead you to whatever you think or feel the promised land is, and then resource you so you don't have to stop along the way. It's not about giving you what I didn't have. It's about building for you what you want to be built. I'm the adult. I have the resources. I have the connections, or I can build the connections that can get you there. I just need you to stay on the through and through. And then I will make sure you get to where you need to get to. That's why, I think we were talking about it earlier, but the men, when I was talking about the parent cafe, the men are not interested in just having conversation. We're interested in results. Yeah. So we talked about this. So the next time we come together as a parent cafe, we don't want to talk about this again or talk about a different thing. We want to be able to reflect on what it is that we got done since the last time we convened and we met. And that's the beauty of, having fathers in this space, because we are so action oriented, and we're also like solution based. Not to say that mothers aren't, because mothers are. It just show up in a different light. It shows up in a different way. That's why it's like mom can tell you 10 times not to do something, and then when dad says it that one time in the same way, it's a wrap. All right, my bad. And then mom be like, but I said to, matter of fact, appalled. And matter of fact, I got the perfect example of that. And then to the point of just the male saying it versus the woman. So when I met Cam's son, he was having some problems. You know what I'm saying? Some little girly girl problems, right? And long story short, he's he's giving Cam the 411 because we just riding back with Cam because Cam had to pick up her son from work.
This was during his senior year.
This is during
too,
senior
by
year
the
of high
way.
school.
So he's 17.
And
yeah, a lot going on.
so, he had a little disagreement with his little thing, you know what I'm saying? And this had been something that him and Cam had been having conversations with consistently. So, we listening and minding our business or whatever. Like we already said, hey, what up? I'm Devin, this, that, and the third. So he ended up saying some things. And the first thing that he said was girls are, what did he say, Cam? Girls or men.
Emotional. No, he said.
Yeah, he said
say
men can handle their emotions more than women, or women are way more emotional than men, or something along those lines. And I said, whoa. It was like a visceral reaction because I understood that he shouldn't be saying that to a woman. You know what I'm saying? So I said, whoa, wait a second. You don't say that. No.
Doc almost crashed that car. Almost crashed
we don't
out.
do that. We don't. He was like, what you mean? So now I'm in the conversation, right? But long story short, basically it got to the point where he was saying that he was protecting his blackness against what his, at the time, girlfriend had said to him. And I was like, but are you not pro-black? He was like, yeah. So I was like, so what are you protecting? Like, now we're going back to the ego. Don't lock in your ego. Don't lock in your ego or you gonna die. Okay? So he said that and I was like, well, no. I said, but what are you protecting if you already know this to be true? He's like, well, I had to tell her, put her in her place. And I think he actually did say put her in her place. But, basically I had to put her in the place because, I'm pro-black. Ain't nobody gonna challenge my blackness, real masculine energy. I go, okay, but what is really happening? He was like, what you mean? I said, what is really happening? He was like, well, I had to protect myself. I said, nah, you ain't have to protect yourself because you just told me that you pro-black. So what is really happening? And he basically, I got him to say that he was hurt. So then I go, okay, so lead with that. There's way more to the story, but we don't got enough time to go in depth into all of that. But basically I had to tell him, like, I get what you're saying, but you're hiding behind masculinity, toxic masculinity at that, to say that your feelings is hurt. And what his girlfriend at the time was only asking or requesting of him is to be emotionally available for her when she needed it. Like, it was a whole little thing. But I said that, and he was like, yeah, you right. He was quiet.
Crickets.
He was quiet, and then he was like, yeah, you right. And then Cam was like, oh, ain't no way she driving. So people you can see me. So she driving and she looked. She had a Medea moment. So she looks. Oh, ain't no way. I told him this yesterday, and now when you said it, it just clicked. Yeah, that was an example but it was like the way in which I presented it, right? The way in which I presented it obviously is different than whatever Cam did, right? But Cam been telling this man what to do all his life. So I always say this. Women get the short end of the stick when it comes to the advice. Once us as men get to like this teenage age or like that puberty, because now we're looking for less of that mama stuff and we're looking for more like, give it to me in the way that I understand it, in the man way, like man math, man logic, and not women logic.
Because
it's the difference.
We can't
so
do that.
men, when men going back to men being in these spaces, men, when they are in spaces at school, we handle everything 10 times different. We handle conflict different. We handle relationship conversations different. We handle all the different aspects of what mentorship really is different. And when we provide men the space to show up in that way, one, not only does it help the village or the community be more effective in developing our kids, but two, it helps our men practice being fathers, whether they are a father of their own, or an aspiring father, or one that is like in between of knowing if they want to be a father or not. It helps them practice. And what did we say in the beginning of this lesson? Parenthood is an art. You have to practice it. And if you don't practice it, then you don't get good at it. And nobody is naturally good at parenting. It's not possible. It's not possible. I've been parenting people's kids for a long time. But I've also been studying the art of developing the whole child. And I think that parents, dads in particular, need to have space to engage with these kids on a consistent basis. So kudos and shout out to dads on duty, because that is a super dope way to engage dads with the everyday school environment.
For this topic, it's a bit personal for me because I was raised in a single parent home by my mom. I did have a relationship with my dad, but he was in prison. So naturally, obviously, that was very strained. And then once I transitioned to adulthood, I became a single mom, and so that was a whole experience as well, just raising my son primarily by myself. And I have examples in my life where I can see where that narrative is kind of true, where there is an absence of Black men, in the family structure or just in parenting. However, on the flip side, I still believe that there's positive results that can come from there being more involvement from Black men. And I do still have some positive examples from, like I said earlier, I gave flowers to a Black man who saw me and affirmed me, and that was a mentor. I also had my godfather. Like, I still had other Black men in my life that still helped shape like my worldview and help guide me, towards success. But yeah, Dad's on Duty, super dope visual to see. And just from the clip, being able to like understand like how they're able to de-escalate when there's moments where the teens are on the brink of wanting to fight, or as they're just coming into the school, just engaging with just having a simple conversation like that is very powerful. And then even just some of the articles as well that we looked over preparing for like this conversation, the one that's literally called like challenging the absent Black father myth, was very surprising to me because it gave stats from at the time that study was done. It was by the CDC, which is the Center for Disease and Control and Prevention. And I believe it was within like the last 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. So I am curious to see how this has shifted or maybe increased or whatever the case may be over the years. But at the time that the study was done, it actually showed that out of all of the demographics of fathers, that Black fathers actually were the most present. So Black fathers, or technically the ones, if they were in their child's life, the ones that were doing more of the daily caregiving, who were actually sitting down having meals with their kids, helping them with homework, things of that nature. So those are just some of the things for me that I think helps balance out this misconception that Black men are absent. Because while that is true, we could benefit from there being more visibility and from these men having more opportunity to just grow in a space of youth development or just parenthood. The ones who are here, we can't overlook what they're doing, and that they are working hard and that they are making a positive impact.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I think that comes down to what is father engagement? Like, how do you experience father engagement? And I think a lot of those myths, or I feel a lot of those myths are backed by your experience in fatherhood. So I'm gonna leave that there. I know a lot of active fathers.
Same, I do too, and they're doing
an amazing
job. Wonderful job.
Not perfect, but an amazing job.
For sure.
So with that, as we're coming to a close, because as Cam knows, I have to get these edges tamed.
And do.
So I gotta make sure I get to my appointment. But the hip hop drop for this week, I'm just gonna recall everybody back to The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, and tie that to the parents are the bearers of the message. I already kind of hinted at it in the beginning of the show. Child born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind, is what Grandmaster Flash rapped. I think it's the second verse, to start the second or third verse of the song. And I think that it is critical for us to understand that even in the 70s, we understood that a child is born a blank slate and is taught everything that it becomes. So if your child grows up to become a gang member, a murderer, a scholar, a doctor, an astronaut, a career criminal, a police officer, whatever, there's so many different directions. I tried to make sure I was not on either side of the fence. They were taught that. And if it wasn't taught by you, you allow for somebody else to teach them those things. So understand that when your child comes into this world, what they become is solely based off of the world that you allow for them to learn from, the village that you allow for them to learn from. And you have the power and the control to shape that world into something that shows them that they are more than what their environment tells them they are. That was a hip hop drop. That is what we get from hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't believe me, just watch. Listen, I got the one hitter quitters today.
You on a roll today. You might want to change that to mic drop because, I mean, what better way to wrap this up than with that powerful message, pun intended.
Yeah, well, it's been another great episode, Cam. Another great class. We are, what, 4 lessons in? 4?
Yeah, we
cooking. 4, 3, 4, one of those. Class, I hope you all are doing an amazing job taking notes, doing your homework. And just adding to the community. I don't think we've done this in the last couple episodes, so make sure you follow us on all social media. OTS Pod. Make sure we on there. We ain't created yet when I'm saying that, but hopefully that's on there. And if not, we'll make the adjustments because when I edit this, future dev edit this and fix it. But OTS Pod. But then also we have a community over on LinkedIn. As well as Sankofa Leadership Associates has a company page, and By Any Dreams Necessary also has a company page. So follow us on all those things to stay connected and stay involved. And we're in the process of creating a Patreon as well, which will have a lot of the resources that you would otherwise pay for anyway on there for the plan ski. So unlimited downloads as possibly, I don't know. Let me not speak that into existence yet, but you will have some perks while you are a part of the paid community on Patreon. Everything else will be free on LinkedIn. Cam, you got anything for the peoples?
I just want to continuously thank our listeners for staying in tune with us, and I want to encourage y'all to make sure you are talking back to us. As you can see, we love to chat. We are talkers. So whatever is resonating with you, whether it be just different ways of how you can engage your parents or things that you're doing that we haven't even thought of or mentioned, make sure that you're adding that to the comments and to our different platforms that we just mentioned where we're keeping this conversation going. And I'm just excited for us to continue to grow and build together. This has been a great journey thus far, and it's just going to get even greater. So, with that, So, with that being said, you want me to take us out?
They already know who I am. I'm Dev.
All right, and I am Cam. Class has been dismissed, and your syllabus has been officially remixed.